Ladies and gentlemen and they-thems of the jury, I stand before you today to defend my clients from grossly exaggerated claims. My clients, one Miss Brilliant Diamond and Mr. Shining Pearl, stand accused of being the worst Pokemon games ever. Such accusations as useless garbage, a disgrace to the original games, and a monument to corporate greed have been levied at these fine citizens. Good people of the jury, Your Honor, by the end of my speech, I hope to defeat these charges. I will demonstrate that these games do have a use case, a situation in which they are great, even ideal games to play. I submit the plea of not guilty. So, you've heard it all before. These games are inferior remakes that pale in comparison to Platinum as Sinnoh games and ORAS as remakes. The chibi art style is uninspired, the world design is lazy, the story is unimproved. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl are in a vacuum good games, when most of the time you would have a much better experience playing Platinum. What I will tell you, however, is that BDSP fills a niche better than any other mainline game, and that niche is a valuable one. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl are the best games to play if, specifically, you are inexperienced with Pokemon and want to learn about the battle system. Every Pokemon game has battles, but they're not always the focus of the games, despite constituting the main gameplay loop. There's a lot of appeal to Pokemon without the battles. Filling out the Pokédex, doing whatever random minigames are included, dressing up and taking fit pics, and, of course, gambling. For plenty of people, soaking in the good vibes of Pokemon is more than enough, and the battles are only one part of that. But in the past few years, a lot more people have become interested in the intricacies of Pokemon battling. Nuzlocke and competitive Pokemon have both exploded in popularity over the past few years, and there's a good chance that someone will be given the push to play a Pokemon game because of how impressive the battling is. Battles can be incredibly complex and skill-based, and these showcases of Pokemon battling at the highest level demonstrate how much strategy is involved. There's a massive amount of niche interactions and synergies to be found, and thanks to the simple quantity of unique Pokemon, there are always more to be found for specific circumstances. You can find them if you're creative enough. So load up a Pokemon game and learn the mechanics. I do think there's a certain easy charm to BDSP. The chibi models aren't impressive, but they are pretty entertaining to look at. The Pokemon models generally look clean, and of the 3D games, I'd say this is among the best looking. God knows you wouldn't want your first impression of Pokemon's art to be Scarlet and Violet. The environments look pretty nice, actually quite good, and Sinnoh in general isn't a terribly ugly region. We also got outfits, which aren't customizable, but are pretty cute, and all we had to sacrifice was the sweet thrill of gambling. Visually, it's hardly stunning, but BDSP gets a passing grade. That matters when you're first jumping into an entirely new game, since it's just a lot easier to stick with something that isn't an eyesore. I also think adapting the Sinnoh games puts BDSP at an advantage for being accessible to newcomers, because, in my mind, Sinnoh is the Pokemon formula to a T. You get your starter, progress through a linear world while capturing Pokemon, collecting gym badges, and fighting an evil team with nebulous goals. Yes, this is the plot of literally every game, but the Pokemon games generally aren't known for their rich storylines. BDSP follows a very plug-and-play formula that is at its simplest and most streamlined. There's none of the awkward underleveling of Johto, or the excessive cutscenes of Alola, or the lack of direction that comes with the GBA games. Speaking of direction, by the way, I think it's great that you can see your next objective under the main menu. This is something that should have been in every Pokemon game from the start. If I start a playthrough of Diamond and leave it for a week, there's no way I'm remembering if I'm supposed to speak to Cynthia's grandmother or spray some ducks. The objective reminder is just one of a few quality of life changes that the remakes added. The removal of hidden moves is a godsend. I've never seen the appeal of them. Having to fill up your team with moves that are useless a lot of the time and which can't be forgotten easily is just tedious. HMs getting axed only speeds up the game, which is very necessary. Gen 4 was infamous for its long battle animations, but thankfully BDSP brought the speed up to speed with modern games. Yes, that's the praise BDSP is getting. The bar is underground. But you know what else is underground? Old men. Like the Underground Man, specifically. The overhaul to the Grand Underground seems to be the only universally appreciated feature, and with good reason. The roaming Pokemon are novelty, the hammer minigame is dangerously addictive, and I'm sure at least one person used the secret base feature. None of these features really have anything to do with learning the battle system, but they go a little way to making the overall experience of Sinnoh a little more cohesive. The grind never feels as bad when it goes smoothly. Okay, so let's say that on a superficial level, BDSP has your attention. You're willing to give it a chance because it looks pretty and Chibi Cyrus is cute. How does this actually help with learning the battle system? Let's start with the basics. BDSP has a little indicator telling you whether or not a move will be super effective or resisted against a given target before you use it. This is something that's generally in the newer games, but it helps that it's here too. The type chart is kind of a mess and not so intuitive, so it really helps for newcomers to be given a little more information. You'll need to keep up with type interactions, especially since the fairy type is present here, and not only this, but all Gen 8 mechanics. Dynamic speed, updated abilities and movesets, more interactions like dark types being immune to Prankster and grass types being immune to spore moves. There haven't been any major changes to the fundamental rules of Pokemon battles since Gen 8, so learning these mechanics does allow you to slot in perfectly to modern competitive play and ROM hacks. By starting with BDSP, you won't need to unlearn bad habits from older games. You can forget the physical special split or steel resisting ghosts in Dark. What's this? An objection? The prosecution tells me that the BDSP battle system is not in fact up to date because it doesn't contain the Gen 8 gimmick Dynamax. Indeed, BDSP has no generational gimmick included whatsoever. But, Your Honor, in this case, the absence of a feature is actually a merit. Generational gimmicks are always stuck onto battles on top of the core mechanics. Learning about Dynamax isn't relevant if you want to get into VGC, and there's certainly no terrestrialization in most Nuzlocke ROM hacks. Gimmicks can be learned after the core battle mechanics, since they come and go like leaves in the wind, and don't affect the functions of the core mechanics. Whether a game has Megas or Z moves, Dynamax or Terra, the fundamentals of the battle will remain unchanged. Ghost types will kill Psychics, Psychics will kill Poisons, and Focus Blast will always miss. Leaving the gimmicks out is just trimming the fat from a meaty system. But modern mechanics call for modern games. Why not play Scarlet and Violet with its Gen 9 mechanics and Pokemon to jump fresh into the competitive scene? Why not the Let's Go games, which are specifically marketed towards newcomers? The answer lies in the champions. Geeta is a bland and unimpressive trainer, and Trace is merely a footnote in history. BDSP, on the other hand, has the most esteemed champion, with her team in its most esteemed form. What good is a system with so many complexities and strategies if you're never in an uphill battle, and uphill this final challenge would be? Have you learned to climb the mountain that is the late game difficulty spike? The BDSP Elite Four demands that you've been paying attention. It provides what other Pokemon games are lacking: incentive. Why learn the battle mechanics properly when the final fight is a cinch that can be swept aside by setup? This Elite Four won't let you do that. Let's take a closer look at what I think is the best designed Elite Four and Champion Gauntlet out of any Pokemon game. Aaron's first up. His Elite Dustox carries Toxic and Light Screen, which deter brainless setup sweeps by putting your Pokemon on a timer and blunting their attacking power. A Poison or Steel type walls Dustox, resisting its only attacking move of Bug Buzz and being immune to poison, but this baits in Heracross with Brick Break and Earthquake. A defensive switch against Heracross will let it use its Flame Orb and activate Guts, so now you're staring down a massively powerful wall breaker. Beautifly is frail, but has Quiver Dance and the Wise Classes, so if you play too passively, it can set up and sweep. It needs to be dealt with while it's still weak. Vespiquen, on the other hand, will stick around with Defense Order and its great natural bulk, while threatening big damage with its nasty Citrus Berry and Acrobatics combo. The Wasp isn't an overwhelming threat, but you can't get bold against it. Drapion is Aaron's ace, whose perfect crit build will tear any defensive setup to shreds. Compare this to his Platinum team, which is paltry in comparison, and you can see how well this team is built. It provides a dynamic challenge where your strategies have to either be meticulously planned or change with the flow of the battle. It's not enough to walk in and click super effective moves. Stealth Rock is phenomenal against Aaron, and if you figure that out by now, you'll be massively rewarded. Let's keep going. Bertha has heavy hitters and fat tanks. Her lead Quagsire again threatens setup sweepers with Toxic, and has Water Absorb to prevent mindless water spam. Grass moves are good here, but Whiscash threatens grass moves with Ice Beam. Not only that, but it has a combination of Belch and Rindoberry, patching up its quad weakness to grass and allowing it to really punish grass types. Sudowoodo is a dangerous wall breaker, and Hippowdon and Golem are strong physical tanks. Bertha has two exploitable weaknesses. Her team is slow and frail on the special side. If you can properly maneuver a special attacker with the right coverage, she might pose no challenge, but you can't walk in with no plan. Her Platinum team, in comparison, has much less direction. But Flint. Flint is a toxic, unpleasant man. He runs two very unorthodox sets, an attacking Steelix with Sheer Force and Life Orb boosting the power of its moves dramatically, and a defensive Lopunny with Q-Charm to cause infatuations, leftovers for healing, and Mirror Coat to bounce special attacks back. But what's far worse is his Drifblim. Will-O-Wisp and Strength Sap nerf opposing physical attackers, and with Minimize and abundant recovery from its Citrus Berry and Strength Sap, one-shotting it is no guarantee. Drifblim is another setup sweeper that becomes more dangerous the longer it sticks around, but for a much more evil reason than Aaron's Beautifly. The Balloon's endgame, its ultimate goal in life, is to cripple your physical threat. Set up Minimize to achieve evasion boosts, eat its berry to activate Unburden for the speed boost, and then pass all of these buffs to Infernape. This monkey is strong to begin with. Thunder Punch hits threatening water and flying types, Fire and Close Combat hit hard and are a great offensive duo, and Mach Punch offers priority. Its main weakness, its frailty, is offset by its Focus Sash, and if it receives boosts from Drifblim, this thing can be a demon. Rapidash is also here. Flint's team here is so much more interesting than in Platinum, which can be just run over by a fast attacker. Stealth Rocks are obviously great, especially as they can break Infernape's Focus Sash. Taunt can shut down Drifblim if you can position your Taunt user to not take too much chip from Steelix and Lopunny. See how much more planning is required for each fight? There is no simple, mindless answer to any battle here. Lucian plays with speed. Bronzong and Girafarig both prosper under Trick Room, which inverts speed and causes slow Pokemon to move first, and Girafarig can't be taunted thanks to its Mental Herb. At the other end of the speed spectrum is Alakazam, which is a monster of a special attacker thanks to its Life Orb, the damage from which is negated by Magic Guard. Alakazam, however, is a paper tiger and can be undone by priority moves. Hyper Offense is great against Lucian, but you need to achieve speed control. His Platinum team carries very little utility and mostly just has coverage moves. If you reach Cynthia, you must have learned. Aaron presents a balanced team with setup, wall breakers, and strong coverage. Bertha tests the diversity of your team. Have you brought enough special attackers? Do you have enough coverage? Flint asks you to shut down one threatening combination with utility moves without losing too much tempo to his other Pokemon, and Lucian challenges your understanding of speed. The Champions team is strong, really strong, but there are two standouts. Garchomp earned Cynthia's infamy by tearing apart unprepared teens. It's fast, it can take a lot of punishment and give plenty back. Garchomp had already cemented its reputation as a fearsome Pokemon in Cynthia's Gen 4 team, but BDSP saw fit to overload it. Jolly Nature makes it max speed, while Swords Dance buffs its attack and punishes passive play, along with Rough Skin and Yachi Berry to shore up its defenses. Garchomp is Cynthia's offensive ringer, but defensively, Milotic is just as deadly. Marvel Scale and Flame Orb boost its physical defense while making it immune to status, Mirror Coat reflects special moves, and Recover keeps it healthy. Since it can stick around for so long, it gets more chances to burn with Scald or freeze with Ice Beam. Cynthia presents the player with an unstoppable force and an immovable object. If you want to become the champion, you better understand just how intricate Pokemon battles can be. But, good people of the jury, I cannot stand in front of you and in good conscience plead my client's total innocence. The crimes of these games are well documented. They are cheap, lazy, and rushed remakes that do not do justice to the Sinnoh region. To this day, the definitive Sinnoh experience is not contained in BDSP, but still in Platinum. These games have problems common to most Pokemon games: excessive grinding, overly long animations, and uninspired story. Recording footage was a real slog for this, because a lot of the time I just didn't enjoy playing, knowing that there is a better version of this game that has existed for nearly 2 decades. Why did I bother playing this soulless cash grab of a video game, and furthermore, why did I defend it? If you can believe it, I did not really get into Pokemon as a child. I played Diamond very briefly, I watched some of the Sinnoh anime, but for the most part, Pokemon just passed me by. Brilliant Diamond was the first Pokemon game I ever played, for the exact reason I mentioned at the start of the video. I thought Nuzlocke looked fun. BDSP was the most recently released game, and Gen 4 was the only piece of Pokemon I had a passing grasp of, so I decided to just pick up Brilliant Diamond. I have not been speaking in hypotheticals. I know BDSP is a great way to learn the battle system, because it taught me the fundamentals of Pokemon battling. Let me tell you, when I first played Brilliant Diamond, I thought it was pretty easy. I was sailing through battles, and had reached the Elite Four before I knew it. Cynthia shredded me to pieces. I lost the first ever champion fight I attempted, and I had to figure out why. I had to learn to use setup properly and what coverage was important. I had to learn how to manipulate speed tiers and optimize my held items. I couldn't just walk in and vibe my way through battles. I had to go in with a real plan, using all the knowledge I'd built up, and actually strategize my way to victory rather than just mashing buttons at random. Cynthia gave me the kick up the ass I needed to engage with the battle system, and for that I'll always be grateful for Brilliant Diamond. And yet I still think this is a bad game. BDSP doesn't exist in a vacuum, and a directly superior option is available. BDSP has a niche appeal because it fails to achieve a wide appeal. I booted it up for the first time in years to make this video because nothing has been drawing me back. Not when Platinum is right there, not when games like Black and White and Emerald exist, which offer me a far more fulfilling experience. But I've gone to bat for BDSP today because I think it's a useful study in game design. There are many negatives to take away from BDSP, and you should do that. If you can't criticize what you like, then you will forever be happy with mediocrity. BDSP is mediocre, but if not for the qualities I've highlighted today, it would be simply awful. Accessibility and incentive. A game needs both to make players want to learn. Incentive without accessibility looks like a paradox game. A massively complex wave of numbers, information so dense that it's impossible for a newcomer to even tell what's happening just by looking at the screen. The incentive is there to win a war or develop a country, but the accessibility is not. Abundant accessibility with no incentive is the Let's Go games. These games prioritize being a gateway to Pokemon by making battles extremely simple, to the point that there's no reason for a player to learn how the battles work. BDSP finds a niche of balancing both of these factors, and that is something worth learning from it. So I ask you, jurors, good people of the public, to consider not just the failings of Miss Brilliant Diamond and Mr. Shining Pearl, but their redeeming qualities too. I submit the plea of not guilty. Judgment is in your hands. So yeah, 5 out of 10 I wouldn't recommend to most people. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe to make the numbers go up and help keep this pair of rascals out of jail. I have to say, having replayed Brilliant Diamond, I don't really like it, but I do appreciate it. Stick around for more vague and unclear statements, and check out my other videos if you like the sound of my voice. I will see you in the next video, which is about something I don't know, I haven't decided yet. But you have to be there, or you're in trouble. Okay, bye!